included refurbishing the lighthouse and the beacon. Phase 2, set to begin soon, will feature an observation deck and a new beacon expected in February. Chief Secretary Fali Augustine highlighted the creation of a Department of Antiquities to inventory and protect Tobago's artifacts. He emphasized using the island's cultural assets for preservation and tourism development. The National Emblems Bill 2025 was passed in Parliament on January 13th, marking a historic change to Trinidad and Tobago's coat of arms. Tourism and Culture Minister Randall Mitchell announced that the new design, replacing Columbus-era ships with a gold steel pan and sticks, will become official by January 1st, 2026, after a transitional period. Local jeweler and artist Gillian Bishop designed the updated emblem with approval from Pan Trinbago and Cabinet in 2024. Pan Trinbago President Beverly Ramsey Moore called the inclusion of the steel pan a proud and monumental moment, celebrating the instruments as a symbol of resilience and cultural legacy. A man known only as Atto was shot dead near Starlight Shopping Plaza on January 13th. Witnesses reported hearing gunshots around 9 p.m. and the victim was found minutes later on Cuthbert Road near Domino's Pizza. He was pronounced dead before an ambulance arrived. This latest killing brings the murder toll for the year to 12. Police are investigating and searching for the suspects, who are believed to have escaped in a white Toyota Fielder wagon. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I would ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
WESN.
Perception, communication. These are things that I harp on quite a bit from moment to moment, from issue to issue, from communication to communication. How do we perceive it and how effective is it? The messaging that is given to us. Messaging comes in many forms. There could be press releases, there could be statements made in press conferences, there could be responses to questions to journalists via WhatsApp. There could be statements made in the Parliament. At times, it's very obvious what the point of the statement is when you have a press conference and it's part of the main topic of why the speaker called the press conference, you know, and it'll be part of a longer message that we all have to unpack. And then sometimes it will be a tangent, something to sprinkle in, maybe hopefully not causing us to veer off topic in the moment at hand, but to some extent it subtly introduces important or pertinent points, depending on your point of view, of something else that may or may not be related, that may or may not be relevant, but of its own accord has some significance, right? So, of course, there was debate over the state of emergency, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, you can't speak necessarily about the state of emergency without talking about, to some extent, crime fighting. Thus, you talk about the police. Thus, you get to the police commissioner. Now, to what extent was that absolutely necessary in this debate? But the Prime Minister made a comment about the government. This is what he's claiming. They are being hamstrung by the Police Service Commission. Now, based on what is quoted, based on what's reported, so I don't know if this is the be-all and end-all of the statements, but more times than not always, but more times than not, what is reported, ironically, is essentially what was said on the matter, right? To some extent, print copy, they would want to try to include as much as possible, you know, depending on editorial considerations, to lengthen the story, to not have these little short snippets that, you know, doesn't necessarily give us much context or much information. But based on what was reported, it's not clear if the Prime Minister was only complaining about the process, and of course the Service Commission is part of the process, but if he was complaining about a procedural thing or complaining about the work of the Service Commission. That's not entirely clear. It seems as though it's more about the process, but it does not completely remove the quality of work of the Commission based on how he has framed it. And it could be unintentional for the door to be left open for some people to interpret it that, hey, it seems like he doesn't necessarily like the work, not just the process, but the actual results of the work because he basically he basically said, well, they're complaining about the opposition, the Commissioner of Police, quote, as though the government handpicked a COP that is incompetent. It is you all who put the arrangements in place, where the Police Service Commission had to select by detailed process and put before us their findings. And it is from that we have to choose. The government doesn't have the option to choose a police commissioner. That's our choice. I mean, he could have been clear in his language at the end of the day there, because he's saying, you know, we have to choose from this. We don't have a choice, but we have a choice. You don't have a choice, but you have a choice at the same time. Anyway, the law hamstrings us, this maybe is enough of a clarification, into accepting what comes to us from the Commission. And as we may be dissatisfied, as you're making a case of it, with the performance of our current Commissioner, if that's what you're saying, the government cannot jump in and rectify that. So here's the thing. Optics, right? Optically, it'll be really hard for me to try to convince most people outside of the die-hard P&M supporters and actual workers within the party, because, well, and even then, I'm not entirely sure if they will 100% buy into this, or if they will feel the need to just defend their party's position, regardless of what they're thinking personally. It'll be hard for me to convince the rest of the population that the government then handpick the COP from the available candidates, right? Now, it's twofold. I'm not saying that they basically said, we want Erla because we think she's the best person for the job, figure out a way to make it happen. I'm not saying they did that. But I am saying it's an uphill battle for me to convince a significant amount of the population. Probably, I suspect that something similar to that didn't happen. People are cynical when it comes to these things. I don't necessarily think that the process is completely independent from any interference. I just don't know what to degree. It might be minor interference. It might be so minor and natural interference that it will be very difficult to adjudicate out of the process just because of human nature. That's a possibility. Or it could be deep and entrenched and et cetera, et cetera. We don't know. We do know that there is, to some extent, some merit, because even the outgoing chairman did complain about something like this with regards to the process. that the candidate pool for them is limited. That's why I believe it was the outgoing chairman that wanted to have the authority to select, to do the promotion process for the Assistant Commissioner of Police role, because that position also feeds into the candidates for Deputy Commissioner and Commissioner. And they would have preferred to have a better control over what the available pool was for their search for the higher levels of the executive, so they wanted to go one step lower. Because we got that complaint from the head of the Police Service Commission, and now the Prime Minister has brought it up. What they had to choose from, apparently, wasn't necessarily best. They picked the best of the lot. So now that we have issues with the Commissioner, and this is where we may have a problem, because the Prime Minister is trying to say, doesn't have within its power in law to intervene in that. Sorry, the government cannot jump in and rectify that the performance of the current commissioner is not satisfactory. And I get it. If Ayla was on the last year of her first contract, sure, it might be difficult for the government to intervene before her first contract was up, right? There might be all sorts of industrial relations situations and regulations and blah, blah, public service regulations and blah, 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 blah. But technically, when she was hired close to retirement. Her contract was renewed multiple times. Somebody had to, approve of that renewal. The Police Service Commission, for whatever reason, I do not believe, went through a process to find a replacement for her. They just renewed her effectively. We didn't hear them doing any sort of extensive search and maybe then say, well, we can't necessarily find anybody good enough to replace her yet, so we'll just renew her even though she's already at the age of retirement. No, that's not, unless memory serves correct, that's not what was presented to us. What was presented to us was, everything is fine here, we're going to renew her. The problem is, the government's actions kind of undermine what the Prime Minister said. And I'm kind of baffled that he thinks that these statements would be an effective defense of any opposition criticisms over the job performance of the current Commissioner of Police. Again, there are those who think that Ayla was handpicked. But regardless, let's just say she wasn't. Let's just say everything was done in good faith. If her job performance wasn't satisfactory, you simply needed to start the process whenever her contract was up to try and find somebody else. But you didn't do that. You had a mechanism more than once to potentially rectify a situation if you acknowledge that there is a situation with the job performance of the Commissioner of Police, and you didn't. So it's kind of hard for us to buy the statement of government doesn't have the option. Sorry, if that's what you're saying, the government cannot jump in and rectify that being the job performance of the cop being unsatisfactory. You literally had at least two opportunities that are very similar to the current one, where I do believe the expectation is they're looking to replace her now. This is the beginning of the year. This is the time when this talk has happened the last 2 years. Now, maybe they renew her again, in which case that'll make this statement seem very interesting, depending on how you want to analyze it and where your biases are. But it'll be very hard to defend both of those things existing at the same time. Ayla being renewed again, and the Prime Minister making a statement that they cannot jump in and rectify unsatisfactory job performance of the Commissioner of Police with regards to hiring and firing. Because you're opting in to a situation that you may not be able to defend now. You've opted into it 2 to 3 times already. What's going to happen now? Perception. Listen, it's not that I want to be like, gotcha, Prime Minister, you're wrong. See, he's lying to the people. That's not what this is about. I'm trying not to put in emotional or biased language into it. you come to your own conclusion with regards to how you view the Prime Minister's seeming inconsistencies in his positions. But that's the thing. There will be a significant section of the population that once they fully analyze what was said about the process, about the government's inability to jump in and rectify the situation, and the actions taken to renew or to retain the services of the current commissioner, it's kind of hard to see those two things existing at the same time and not having questions. It's almost like if politicians don't expect the population to remember what they did or what they said, last year, when it comes to making decisions this year. Consistency seemingly, and I don't know if this is a Trinbagonian thing, because consistent is not necessarily something that is used to define our cultural norms. I mean, just case in point, the opposition leader, it was kind of funny. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it was kind of interesting to see, look, let's have a 1-month review of this state of emergency, because according to her, Colman called for a 1-month review of the 2011 state of emergency. Tit for tat. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but at the end of the day, what was good for you is good for me. What's good for me is good for you. And enough of these things, if they are not treated with the right way, will cause the public to kind of look at the situation and say, hey boy, somebody's a hypocrite. The question is who? Unfortunately, the one thing that I guess you could say is consistent is the fact that we kind of look at most politicians the same way, with the same faults. We have the same complaints. That's the one thing that seems to be consistent. But let's end that talk here. Sean Michael Small, this is Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. And we'll get into quickly the daily review. All right, speaking about the Prime Minister's statements, there's been pushback over what was said about police officers hiding in their stations, turning off the lights because of fear. And I did say that I'm not entirely sure if they locked the doors and turned off the lights in the night because they were afraid of the criminals. But I do think that there was some truth in the whole officers not leaving the station, right? Now, unfortunately, to some extent, some people have taken umbrage to the Prime Minister's remarks. They don't like the fact that you're painting the police service in a cowardly light. Of course, one of them is the head of the Police Social Welfare Association, Gideon Dixon. He has come out to criticize the Prime Minister's statements, right? Calling them as reckless and careless. Such remarks could further demoralize officers who are already struggling with issues caused by limited manpower and resources. The problem is, I would very much like to hear, because it's okay, it does nothing to impact the morale of the officers who are on the ground and continue to take the fight to the criminal elements. We're worried about the morale of the service, right? What about the morale of the officers who are fighting a good fight when they have to face public criticisms for the bad apples? I very much would like for him to somewhat address that, to acknowledge that in his statements as well. Because I understand you don't necessarily want your boss's boss's boss to publicly admonish you in a way that you may feel unfair. And this is where perhaps saying that police were afraid and hiding in the dark, turning off the lights, this might be where it may seem like an unfair characterization, an unfair attack. Although, ironically, apparently they do turn off the lights because they're worried about visibility into the station, which I find somewhat interesting. Also, there's concerns about the glass outer exterior walls of the station and the security concerns. So between, we have lights on, we can't see out because it's into the darkness at night, and then, anyone could see in, and potentially, the implication is shoot into the station. At some point in this the whole thing about the DPP not wanting to go into that office in Park Street because he found it was unsafe, the similarities were somewhat interesting. I don't know where was the Police Social and Welfare Association there backing up those considerations, because it was, I believe, God an emergency that told the DPP, hey, things are unsafe. So now it's a hell of a thing, right? It brings up the question, well, are our police stations not secure? Who's going to look into that? Let me try to get through this quickly. So now Professor Ramesh Diosaran and Dr. Randy Sipasad, two criminologists, they weren't necessarily as one-sided. Dr. Randy Sipasad, he said the Prime Minister's remarks were disturbing. It threatened to lower officers' morale while giving criminals unwanted encouragement. But he went on as quoted as saying, I assume the Prime Minister would have good information. It certainly would be troubling if that is what is happening. Right? It would send a very negative message to the public. Professor Diosaran also said something similar, that these statements might be very irresponsible, I'm paraphrasing, but if it has been happening, it has, of course, reached the ears of the Police Commissioner, Minister of National Security. It is the height of incompetence, so when you look at the particular statement, it's not only frightening, it shows you a breakdown in national security. Kind of like somebody was pointing out that there may be an accountability problem in national security, but nobody listened. All right. The Commissioner of Police, who has not been speaking that much with regards to the state of emergency, it's mostly Junior Benjamin, DCP Junior Benjamin. But the Commissioner of Police was defending the officer's commitment, says that their doors are always open to the public. Like, I understand that, but again, similar to the head of the association, where you can't just say these things in a vacuum, because the lived experience by too many citizens falls in line with what the Prime Minister said. It might not be exactly in line with what he said, but effectively, the practical effect of the police are not available. One of the callers basically said he tried to get through to the police station, only to his shock find out they were locked up one night. Now, we can't say it was more than one night, but to his experience, right? So you need to acknowledge the fact that it's not all roses and sunshine, that there is something to trigger remarks like this and observations like this in the public, and deconflict it. Give us an explanation. Don't just say how you could say that it's demoralizing, because the flip side is there are too many people in the population that would say, if the Prime Minister did not say things like this or acknowledge things like this when confronted with it, well, he's just, he's trying to lie to us to defend the police. That's what the population feels. I think enough of the population feels that way. Again, it's not all police, it's not every station, right? Finally, I'm starting to sound like Gary Griffith's biggest cheerleader the last couple of weeks, but Gary Griffith pointed he said that Dr. Rowley's claims highlighted the lack of leadership within the TTPS to assume control and lead by example. And here's the thing, I have heard stories, they're anecdotes, but I've heard stories where Gary, as commissioner, led by example. Led by example as in willing to do the grunt work and then complain to senior level management, who are the people who technically report to him, hey, where are your guys? I'm doing their job right now. I, commissioner, doing their job. I've heard at least one story to that effect, right? So the thing is, we see things that potentially indicate there's a leadership void in national security, not just the police service, but in other aspects. But we're talking about the police right now. We know that there are people who have experience of the police, not necessarily. They are bad apples who don't want to do their jobs. And I'm not saying that the Prime Minister is 100% right, but to some extent, if he were to say, if he said something to the lines of, these things are just rumors and there's something to see here, well, people would not believe him, would not agree with him, because there are enough people that have had the negative experience. And the commissioner is not necessarily looking to try to treat with that effectively, nor is the head of the police association. Meanwhile, the prison association, and I pointed out yesterday, he said, hey, He didn't say why you're persecuting the prison officers. He said, investigate everybody. Don't just go with the juniors, go all the way up to the top. I wonder if maybe we should also be starting to ask about senior police leadership. But it might be a moot point, right? Depending on what the new Police Service Commission does with regards to will they go through the process to find the next commissioner this year. And this year would mean very soon, because someone's contract should be up not too long from now. We have to wait and see. Let's take a break. When we come back, the good lady should be here. And of course, she will be speaking on the obvious topic that I am sure all of our fans have been waiting on her to speak about. Stay tuned. This is Talking About on WSN. We'll be right back after this. Well, now that I see the
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain. SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide: Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience.
Give us a call at 235-5479
for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to Insta. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have two of the three species of anteaters right here.
I'm back here talking about the WSN Content Capital. I'm joined by the good lady herself, who is back from her Christmas or New Year's holidays, all in one, right? And of course, she's been MIA on Talking Point with all the excitement. She has not necessarily spoken since the state of emergency and the succession planning has gone into, I don't know if I should say full gear in the PNM. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who want to hear her remarks on these things, particularly the latter. So, of course, let us welcome Karen Mr. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Sean. And as usual, we have our interesting little discussion before, which may not have anything to do with what we're talking about today. But I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be back and see Sean after this
Yes, break. Because I do wonder how much did you get wind of the news, right? And think, I want to talk about it, and I can't.
Well, you know, the opposite is true. I think when I started seeing all and the drama unfolding, I mean, if you love your country, you know, and you don't allow yourself to be, make a division based on party, and the country is your real consideration, actually did affect me, but it didn't affect me in a positive way. In fact, one day I did not read the online news because it just was so, and because I have been in the cabinet and I know many of the players, I know what, you know, I can interpret things. I may be wrong about my interpretation. I'm not saying I can't be wrong, but because of that fact, it gives me a particular perspective on it.
Well, so, one of the things that I find very ironic is the parallels between things that I see now, and it might not be pertinent, but there are some things that I see now that are parallel, that are similar to what was seen just before the snap election. And at the end of the day, you were there for that time in cabinet to see some of these players who are some of the principal players then are some of the principal players now. And it's not the exact same thing going on, but I do think that there's similar enough parallels that it actually makes your experience in this particular situation maybe even more pertinent than otherwise it would be.
Well, what I will say, Sean, with regard to that comment is this. I think I was not in part of the war room, as they say, because I was a neophyte, so I really was not involved in the active party election machinery, other than what I was given to do, platform speaking, etc. But what I do know is I know the capacity and and I do not underestimate then the persons in the cabinet, or when I was there, and some of them who are there, because you get to know their characteristics, you get to know things and able to add up things. I think you may be wrong, but I think that has given me that perspective. So I think what, having had the opportunity, I think, especially over this weekend, because I like reading the opinions also too, that does help to see how people are gauging the situation. And what the really comes down to, and what I want to focus on, and I'll start first with something that Professor Selwyn Cudjoe said. Oh, I don't always agree with him. Many times I may not agree with him. But he did make a good point, which he said that Justin Trudeau has agreed to step down as Prime Minister, as we know, of Canada. But he has gone on record and said that he will not resign as Prime Minister until the party has selected a new political leader. Because he understands it is almost untenable, it's almost undemocratic, really, to have as your political leader someone different from a potential Prime Minister, should the PNM, which is who it concerns now, should they win. It is almost untenable. And it is not right, in fact, and the lack of democracy comes from the fact that, look at the point he made. He says, let the party decide. I know of no instance, except when Dr. Williams died in office, that the MPs, sitting MPs, had to choose a Prime Minister who was Mr. Chambers. This is not that case. And why it is very concerning to me is that since 2015, when Prime Minister started telegraphing that he wanted to resign, you know, he was giving out those messages. It became more intense, and certainly within the last year, people were pretty confident, unless he's pulling Eric Williams, that's the thing, saying resigning and then figuring out, oh, so that's what you wanted to be Prime Minister. I don't think anybody thought that's what he was doing. He's going to be 76 in October, and I really do think he did want to step down. But I think what is also true of him, and certainly someone who would have known him much better than I, is the former Prime Minister, deceased Mr. Manning, who talked about him having his own way. And I do think he has exhibited that tendency. We saw that with the issue with the Commissioner of Police,
merit list.
with the merit list. And we saw that where he obviously did not support the person who had the head of who's now the head of NTA as the Commissioner of Police, although he scored first, and he did eventually admit that he was at the Prime President's house on the date when the Police Service Commission chairman came to give him their choice for Commissioner of Police. And lo and behold, the President handed it back. So that's one instance. Another instance is with the sale of the Pointe-à-Pierre, of the refinery, where it was clear from the optics in the media that he favored Jindal, Mr. Jindal. And Mr. Jindal was facing serious corruption charges and bribery charges in his country, and was only allowed to leave his country in 2023 and got permission. And when there was enough of an uproar so that Mr. Jindal himself probably said, I had enough of this. Even then, he's all the way in Samoa. Months have passed since then. And he's sending messages back to the opposition, you know, and very harsh messages, all speaking to wanting his own way. So where does that reach us here? It reaches us here on this point. He knew that he was going to resign. He had his own back pocket in that regard. He had that in his own back pocket in that regard. So what was the right thing for him to have done? The right thing for him to have done was to allow the party. That's why you have the party. And the Article 1 is so consistent with our Constitution. Allow the party to make that decision. How you do that? The General Counsel, if you look at the articles, I went through some of them, and I think there's a very good article that was written too. But I think Article 12 and Article 19 in particular are very helpful in that regard. What he could have done and what he should have done is said, listen, we can't have a situation where the party does not choose the political leader, because I know of no other instance except Dr. Williams' case, which is unusual, that whoever is the party leader is the person, should that party win the election, becomes the prime minister. That has never been otherwise. And that's how it should be, because it adds for certainty. It allows people to understand this person is going to be your prime minister should our party win. And it is something that the party membership has sanctioned and agreed. And when there's an election, the electorate would also determine that. But he took that away. And how has he taken that away? By refusing, in my view, I shouldn't say refusing, by not stepping down. Because his position, as we all know now, there are 3 positions that do not come up for re-election until after the national elections. That is the political leader, that is the chairman, and that is the secretary of the party. But you can call a special election, a special convention, and they have very wide powers. If you read the article, it gives the what they call the annual convention and the special convention have the same powers. That's what it says, and their powers are unlimited, and they're the supreme body of the party. So what should he have done? Say to the party, listen, we're going to have an election. I am going to step down as party leader. You will have a special election, which the special convention, which the Constitution makes provision for you to choose who you want as party leader. Having done that, then we know then that is the person leading the PNM into election, because he said he is stepping down, which means he's vacating his seat, which means he will no longer be a member of parliament, nor prime minister once the elections have been completed. So that is what he should have done. And I believe the reason he did not do it is because I'm pretty confident that Stuart Young would not have been chosen. I'm pretty confident that it would have been Penny Beckles, maybe somebody else, but I think she would have definitely been there. He didn't want to take that chance. That's my view. He didn't want to take that chance, because if he had done it that way, the democratic way, the party would have spoken, one man, one vote, and there's no power of veto of the political leader with the new constitution that they had, created some years ago. And he himself has gone on record. I actually have the quotation where he says, if you and the political leader are not in good terms, you have a very hard road, or not hill, to climb to get around that. So he understands the importance of the post, but more importantly, his responsibility to the country, to have that sort of situation where he's still there. Why are you doing that? Because you wanted your way, because you were not prepared to allow the party membership to determine who is political leader and take them into election, and therefore become the next prime minister should the party win. That is what you did not want to happen, because you are fairly confident that Stuart Young would not be chosen. Why can I say that? Part of the reason is when they had the party elections for leader of the party, in his own, first of all, less than 10% of the membership of the party came out and voted. But more so, in his constituency of Digicel Martin West, a couple hundred of thousands of potential voters only voted. A couple hundred, until 5 o'clock, I think, on the 3rd day before the annual convention was held, he finally came out and voted. So that alone tells you that there was a lack of support. And I think in the last 2 months, 3 months, it has become clearer with the salary review issue, all the number of issues, that he has become less and less popular. And what does that have to do with Stuart Young? I think there's definitely the perception that he is seen as Mr. Mini-Me, a reflection of the Prime Minister, and will do what the Prime Minister wants. Whether that is so or not, and I don't think it's an unfair perception. An example I can use very recently is that when the courts, our courts, the judiciary, determined that Mr. Warner, a good friend of the Prime Minister, and he hasn't denied that, very good friend, not Jack Warner, the other Mr. Alan Warner, was illegally quarrying in Waterloo and taking on state lands without a license, which means he wasn't paying to remove that aggregate or whatever materials that he's using quarrying. The court, the judge shut it down, said it was illegal, and granted and had an injunction that he couldn't remove anything except laptops. 2 weeks later, Minister of Energy and Mining gives a temporary license to Mr. Warner's son to continue mining in an area where the court has shut down for illegal quarrying. And then we see what's happening in Tobago. I cannot believe, based on what I read in the papers, that Mr. Young is not very well aware, that as it is alleged in the papers, that Mr. Warner has been removing illegally, because he doesn't have a license, according to what was reported, a license to remove aggregate from state lands and then allegedly transfer it to a company he owns to provide cement. He had to have known that, and yet he stood by and did nothing. So you don't have, and then of course we know of the Train 1 debacle, where he knew that Train 1 had shut down, and yet he went on international television and said, oh no, Train 1 is not shut down. So, you know, let's just say that there's a perception that what the Prime Minister wanted, he wanted Stuart Young. And it started earlier, we know that. You saw the, for the first time, but certainly you don't know that the one thing about the PNM is known for its party discipline, and they keep things within the context of the party, so it has that reputation, which is a good reputation to have. But what you started hearing were persons saying that this is not a monarchy, you cannot anoint someone as a Prime Minister, because I think people would have known much better than I do the internal workings that were going on, that is exactly what the Prime Minister intended to achieve. And so they were sending out warning signals. It started, it was all in the papers. Jennifer Batiste came out and spoke about it. They then had to go have a meeting of the General Council to give them the approval to cancel the annual convention and the internal election, because they did it without the required approval.
This is the previous General Council meeting, not the one that happened this Sunday.
Yes, so it started up. The point is it started unraveling, and you saw the dissension within the party, and they knew why they was doing what they were doing, and they knew why they were objecting. But you remember, you know, they knew why they were doing what they were doing. I'm quite confident.
Because they're trying to say, well, we were just concerned about the process, and the process needs to be followed.
Much more than that.
Now, I can't remember who it was, but there is some precedent to allow the parliamentarian, the members of the House, to, I guess you could say, pick someone in the interim, right? But you're right. I think the stumbling block is the members of the House should not be picking the political leader moving forward. That's not really right. And whoever the political leader is should be both the prime ministerial candidate, but then depending on the timing, if it happens sooner rather than later, should become the prime minister to carry out the rest of the term, however long it is. And I thought, I mean, you have the benefit of seeing all that has happened so far to give your first comments. I actually thought initially, oh, given that some of the outcry didn't happen just yet, I thought, oh, it seems like they settled everything. He's going to step down at the beginning of March. They'll figure out who the political leader is, and then the elections will come after that. But in hindsight now, I think I was somewhat naive, and everything that we've seen in the papers that they tried to deny, like it's hard not to see the population start to think more and more, yeah, they just want Stuart Young, and they tried to force it through.
And that's what he's done. What he did, because it's not as though he got suddenly very ill and a sudden emergency occurred that at all. This was well, he had to have planned it well. He knew the right thing to do was to allow the membership of the party to decide the political leader, because he said he's not going back up. So if he's not going to be prime minister, then they are going to be effectively deciding if to go with that person into the election as a potential prime minister, and he wanted Stuart Young. So and I think he felt that if he had gone that route, Stuart Young would not have been selected, and therefore he would not have gotten his way. So what did he do? He had a caucus, he had a retreat of the members of parliament, and the PNM does have the majority 2219. And so what he did, gave the impression first, the first impression with that picture, all was well in a party and everybody was on board with Stuart Young, which I knew that wasn't going to be true at all. And then you found out the rumblings, because now they had to write, I think, to the president to let her know, because it's the president under Section 76 of the Constitution. And it doesn't say when this has to happen. It usually happens when an election is called or when someone dies in office, but it doesn't stipulate any time. What it does say, though, is when you have the majority support of the members of the House. And since the PNM is in office and they have the majority support, if all the MPs supported it, then it would be in keeping with Section 76. But then you found out that it wasn't as hunky-dory as he wanted you to think, because then you found out 11 supported Stuart Young and 9 supported Penny. Penny, who was the most popular and probably the one that would have become political leader. And as you have to understand this also, quite apart from the issue with Trudeau, I read an article and they talked about Biden, and they were saying they should not have allowed Biden to go back up. But you see, a lot of people hitch their wagon to a person who they believe. So it's not that they have loyalty to the country, they have loyalty to their own political future. And if any of them had signaled to the Prime Minister, as he's still Prime Minister and holding that position, and you have not called parole Parliament as yet, he has the power, both as political leader still and as Prime Minister still, and definitely as political leader, which he does not have to give it up until next year. What he could have done with that caucus, he said, oh, you're not supporting my Stuart Young? Well, let me tell you something. You're not getting a seat in Parliament. Okay? You're not going there. Because and he did that. Penny was sent to United Nations. Amy Brown was sent Brazil. Donna Cox was sent Florida. I cannot tell you why, but what I can tell you is he has the power not to give you a seat. And if you had shown dissension, and if you had shown that you did not support it, I'm pretty certain you would be shooting yourself in the foot and you would not be selected. Apart from which, if that had happened, the party would also then be in a crisis, because the electorate would see that the discipline and the committee and all of that is clearly not there. And he cannot remove Penny, because if he removes Penny, well, then everything is over. Then it will be clear that it was not a democratic choice. It was not something that the parties, that the membership supported, and Stuart Young was being foisted on the part,
but if he tries to remove Penny, he runs the risk of losing a re-election.
Yes, well, yes.
In an election where no one is willing to say that the PNM are significantly ahead.
Right. Now, what I think, and I just want to finish this point, and then I'll get back to that point. But you see, there's so much power that he can have, and that's what he's trying to exercise, because right now, no one, I imagine, however they feel really about Stuart Young being the chosen one, no one is going to do anything to jeopardize their own position. So when and if, should the PNM win, it would win most likely by a very slim majority. They won by 2219 because the UNC got an additional seat in the last elections, plus the turnout in PNM strongholds was in the 40-something percentile, including in the Prime Minister's constituency, right? So that, and Tobago, after the THA, we don't exactly know where Tobago will go. And if you lose even one of Tobago, you may not, or two.
Yeah, because if you lose one, it's not just you lose one. The swing is by 2 for every one that you lose, potentially. Because if the TPP decides we'll support the other guys to be the majority, to decide who is the Prime Minister, you're not losing one. The swing, the result will swing by 2. So that's the thing that he cannot control. And that's the thing that we don't know what's going to happen, because when the elections over, should the PNM be successful, it is the members of the House who have the majority, which means you have won the election, who decide who they want as the leader, that is being the Prime Minister. Because you appoint as Prime Minister the leader in the House who has the support of the majority. Certainly will not be the opposition, will give any support. So it will have to be your MPs. It takes 1 or 2 of those MPs. Now that the Prime Minister has no power, he's not an MP, he's not a Prime Minister, he has no power at all.
he's lost that power to bully, as people have said, you to follow what he wants you to do. It can very well mean that he will lose that majority support, and what will happen? It's not good for the country, even that scenario that I am putting forward, which I'm not saying it will happen, but you can't be naive and not understand that politicians are very astute persons, and they know how to play. It's when you talk about political intrigue, that's not by chance. And so all I am saying, however you cut it, two things you're going to take out of that. One, it is really undemocratic of the Prime Minister to do what he has done when he had an option to do it, as Justin Trudeau did, has indicated that he will do. It is very undemocratic to the party and to the country. And secondly, it is unnecessary to the electorate because it creates a kind of uncertainty as to what will really happen when if the PNM were to win and win by a slim majority. It is just not the right thing. And it just says he wants to have his own way as much as he can. Is that a good thing? No, it's not a good thing for the country. That's how I read it. Wait and see what's going to happen as we see the development, which I keep talking about. I'm not switching. You asked me, what was the point you asked me?
Just that I think based on the results of the previous couple of elections and the fact that her supporters came to Balize House, I'm not entirely sure how many, but Penny supporters were at Balize House after the General Council. They expressed their dissatisfaction then and before, when it was reported that she was not selected to be the Prime Minister. Now, granted, one of the complicated things in this that I think some of the commentary potentially jumps the gun. Stuart Young has not been selected to be political leader, right? The problem, of course, is that it seems as though the Prime Minister is going to try to maintain that position into the election potentially. They haven't explained this to us. But her supporters, however, felt disappointed. They wanted to see her elevated. And arguably, whoever was going to be elevated to be the interim Prime Minister, I'll use that phrase for now, may have had the inside track to be the next political leader and the next potential Prime Minister.
That's exactly what you understood. And I hope that's what I've tried to say. I've tried to say that I believe that the Prime Minister has knows that Stuart Young, if it were left to the membership of the party to decide the political leader, they would not select Stuart Young for whatever reasons. I wouldn't regurgitate. But they would have selected more than likely Penny. And if they had selected Penny, Penny would be the one who would have taken us into the election, meaning the PNM taking them into the election. So much I've been associated with the PNM. And once that happens, that more or less is going to be the Prime Minister. It certainly would not be. It certainly will not be Stuart Young who he wants. And so what he did, he in effect took away the democratic right of the party to select, because he understood the implications of that. And he should do the right thing, but he won't do it because he wants his own way. And that's how he's trying to have his own way, but it's not over till the fat lady sings. And I can't tell you what will happen, but by the way, on another note, just before we quickly looking into the crystal ball. I don't know how many times I've been on this show and said that this issue with Dragon Free, which I really want our country to get natural gas, because we will all suffer. We will all suffer. It's not a question of, who you like, who you don't like. The country will suffer. All of us are going to suffer because that's our main source of revenue. But I had already said on several occasions, the whole thing lay with the issue of OFAC and shall not sign a final investment decision. Now it has been further complicated with the SOFA, which apparently there is an undisclosed amendment to the SOFA that was signed recently among 4 other agreements. And our own is apparently a little different from the others that other Caribbean jurisdictions have signed. And it is alleged, it was said in the, I think in the Newsday anyhow, that amendment means that on the request, on our request, that the U.S. can land military planes in our jurisdiction. And we very well know that one thing the United States wants is to get rid of Maduro as the head in Venezuela. And we also know that there is that issue with Guyana and ExxonMobil. So all I'm saying is, I don't know how anybody could say the article I read, that they tried so hard. Well, they tried so hard. If you see anything watching in your face, how many times I talked about it? You know, October the 31st, Shell has, is the last day to make that final investment decision. You know why Shell won't do it. You, as applies to the Manatee, separating the two cross-border where most of the natural gas lies in Venezuela waters. And now Trinidad is put in a situation where the American embassy had to send it to the news media, according to the reports, about this signing of this SOFA. He doesn't want, in my view, he doesn't want Maduro to see that, because it would mean that he is saying that he's prepared to allow the U.S. to come there if they want to defend their own interest, which is the interest in Guyana, and use our country as a military, not as a base, but as a landing point. And that can do nothing.
All logistical points. All logistical support.
Whatever it is, but a land planes, beyond the immunity issues, gone beyond that, which all the jurisdictions have. And so, you looking now and saying he tried his best. What he should have tried his best to do, if he was a good, in my view, as a good Minister of Energy, was to look at the renewable energy, which this European Union gentleman talked about, the Southwest Peninsula, looked at following up with the solar panel farm, because if you had done that, you would have been providing other sources of energy and allow the shortfall, the significant shortfall in the natural gas to be allotted to or allocated to the LNG and downstream industry. You could have done something. You didn't have to reach 9 years, but you weren't there for 9 years, to be fair to you. You became minister in 2021. But even when you sent out the bids for investments, the response was very, very weak. So I don't know who, and in every area, in natural gas, in crude oil production, in the petrochemical downstream industry, every day has been inclined. Central Bank has reported on it. I don't know. And when he sent out the bids for the for investment exploration bids in 2022, 8 of the 16 they got for the onshore near shore. For those that are in the shallow waters, only 4 of the 13 were taken up. And in the deep water, only 4 of the 17 were taken up. How you want to tell me, where's the success?
In fact, before the war in Ukraine,
that's in 21, 22, and
we were talking about the fact that it seems as though the energy giants, the big companies, Shell and BP, like they were trying to slowly close up shop and leave.
Well, that's with Perenco. No, but I don't know if I would say what they tried to do is they gave over their license to the...
Yeah, they've sold some of their assets already, some of their mature wells.
So how is he doing well? In every central bank says a decline in the energy sector, every area, and it's not that you could not have done something, because my understanding is that the first call on our energy is the electricity, lighting up your home, domestic, and all of that. So if that's the first call on your natural gas production, does it not make sense then to try to find other sources of energy so that you could use it? Because the natural gas is what produces the methanol, the urea, all the downstream products, which is where the real revenue for Trinidad is made, not in LNG. It is not made there. Yet I never heard that you did any of that in any serious man. Only talked about it for 9, and you were not there all the time. We were there since 2020, April, I think, 2021. And I think you did not. I don't know how anybody could say that you succeeded. Where's Dragon Field?
Here's the real thing to me. The fact of the matter is we are where we are. So now the question is, you could ask, well, what does the opposition have to get us out of this funk? But also, why would the voters think that maintaining continuity, that is to say, to keep the same people in place, would allow for an improvement? Now, again, I'm not saying that the opposition has better ideas. We don't know what the potential ideas are for. And this is where I would have hoped they would be more competitive in their campaigning and start, because we're in an election year.
I am not.
But that is a very pertinent question, right? You are the incumbent. You've gotten us here. You haven't told us that you're going to do anything differently. So why should we maintain the continuity of keeping you there? I mean, I just don't have a logical reason
and my point,
to present now.
And my point, just to be very clear, I'm not even dealing with the 2 different parties. I am dealing with the fact that the democratic process was compromised, and deliberately so, by the Prime Minister in order to have his way. As the former Prime Minister Manning had said about him, it seems it's true. And that is not the right thing for the party or the country. That's the first point I'm making. And the second point, your choice, quite apart, coming across as almost a clone of you and willing to do, to follow whatever your approaches, has clearly been a failure of that for the PNM in the last, with the Salary Review Commission, that thing with the senior citizen grant saying that was an error. That's a policy. That's a policy no public servant will dare to put into a legislation a provision about the 25,000. That is a policy decision of a government. And you had the, coming, he didn't say it. So the government has lost a lot of I think people felt that even though they weren't happy, they were going to, we're going to win because there's no alternative kind of thing. That was the attitude. I think that is becoming less and less the position, and I do not know if foisting Stuart Young, which all the media is now going to try to build him up as a good choice. Well, look at the facts. When he was Minister of National Security, I have the data there. The numbers went up. It went down only in 2020 when we had both the public health and the state of music, a combination of those two things. And then he left in 2020. And look at him as Minister of Energy. You're going to tell me in every area, I have the figures here, right? And I got it from Central Bank. I didn't, and Central Bank got it from his ministry. But you can't get it if you just look on it just like that. You're not going to get it that easily. So what makes him a good choice? He has not delivered Dragonfield, and they kept saying I was going to save Trinidad. And he knew that. What are you telling people things that you know are not true? What innovation did you make to say, listen, this is a reality? And now with SOFA, with the United States and Trump coming in there with a maximum pressure and increasing their sanctions, I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm saying that whatever the outcome is, it should have been for the party to decide, and I am not confident that that would have been a good choice, not only because of popularity or being seen as a mini-me of the Prime Minister and therefore continuing his thing, but he himself has not been successful. No matter how they use the optics and the whatever they use, their marketing people, they sit down in the war chest room and say, okay, how are we going to sell this? I mean, I know that. At least I know how that goes. I know how that goes.
The politics, our country is only 62 years old, and I think at the end of the day, the problem is the PNM finds itself being an institution that has allowed political ambitions. So now it is not necessarily set up to deal with the political ambitions. It's not necessarily something that it had to experience in the past, given how leadership was transitioned up until Mr. Manning. And this is going to be a test, because one of my concerns for the PNM is, if they make the wrong decisions now, it will only be a matter of time before the population starts to get fed up of them and the results.
Going down that, I'm not going down.
It is a suspicion of mine,
yeah,
right?
I didn't even want to go down that road.
It's a test. There's no such thing as too big to fail.
No, but you
can't fail.
Yeah, but you see,
that's going. You can't fail.
We don't know what's going to happen. And I think, as I said, maybe I like to be put on the blinkers, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not a good look to have this. And Trudeau is a good example. It's not good for the party, and it's not good for the country to have that sort of duality existing. Because one thing you want is, as much as you can, is a level of certainty. And you're not getting that with this situation. And if I were a foreign investor, I'd be looking at what's going on here, and that SOFA agreement with America, and that whole situation with Maduro, and now with Trump coming into power. I'd be very, 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 very concerned about making investment. And that's not good for us. And I don't want that for us. I want the best for us. And I think the best thing for the Prime Minister to do is to do the right thing, so that people will have a sense that if the PNM were to win, which I think that will increase their thing, because people will those who are sitting on the fence would say, the PNM has ethical and principle, and it's democratic in the right way. And I think that would do the country and all of us the better. I can't predict what is going to happen.
I want to take a break, but I'll just say this. Whenever we hear politicians abroad talk about, particularly, let's say America, talk about their primaries and their decisions, right? You know what? One of the things that I don't think I've ever heard them say, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember them ever saying for the good of the party, which has been a quote in the papers over this issue.
Yes.
What you always hear is for the good of the country.
This is it.
Right?
Yes.
So I'll just leave that there.
And I agree with
Right?
you on that, Sean.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open the phone line. Stay tuned.
My name is Dr. Joanne Williams-Carroll, and I am the Director of Behavioral and Mental Health at the Community Hospital. At the Community Hospital, we believe in nurturing mind, body, and soul. Through our counseling and chaplaincy program, we will provide you with support and strength you need to help with your mental and emotional well-being. Give us a call.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website, www.fanzonett.com, for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website, fanzonett.com, to make your purchase today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
I'm back here and talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small, Karen Shashera here. Once again, the good lady has given her initial reaction to where we have reached with regards to the succession planning of one Dr. Keith Rowley for the PNM. Now, technically speaking, we don't know exactly what the intentions are for the selection of the next political leader. We don't know what the timing would be, which is a problem for me and for Karen, because if it's after the election, that's kind of awkward. If not,
for what?
If they then have the election for the political leader after the election.
It is due constitutionally. Every 5 years, there are 3 positions: the chairman, the secretary, and the political leader. That is also in the papers. That does not become due until after the national elections.
The phone lines are open. You can call in and have your say. Interrupt us if you want. Just remember to mute your TV once you get on the phone line with us. But I will say this. I don't know why, because both parties do it. Why is it that we're selecting the political leader? It's not automatically scheduled before the election. That makes the most sense to me.
Because he felt that if he had done
I know why he's doing it in this case.
Right,
but
that's
even
why.
The UNC is also in a similar time frame.
With them.
I know.
They're not the ones doing what they're doing now.
I don't understand why in the party's constitution it doesn't say, well, the next time the political leadership is up, it's for the next election. right? In fact, having the political leadership being up in the middle of a term of office is kind of awkward as well. So I found the last interim election was kind of awkward as well. But hey, this is the process. I'm not going to knock it. But now when I see, okay, and this is how the timing is, and it's going to be up not now, not before the election, it's after. I'm just like, what? That is so weird. It should be before.
I mean, weird. You don't understand? I think you.
Well, no. I'm speaking in terms of how I think it should be. Not, yes, I know, I understand why it might have been done so for whatever reason, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it just is what it is. I do fear that perhaps some people might be somewhat, this is one of those topics that's been dominating the headlines. Now the SOE debate, Karen. Okay, before we could transition, because we technically haven't heard Karen's comments on the SOE, but we do have move on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on there. Caller, good morning. Caller, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I'm calling from Mover. One of the situations, in my observation, I believe that Penny Beckers would not have gotten it because when you look at what's happening with the refinery, Penny Beckers' father, he was for the OWTU, and she would have a view of patriotic bid. You understand? And that the Prime Minister won't have won that. Right? Because certain can't just go in the Parliament and make a statement, and you didn't give any union to prove what they say is true or not. You know, she should have called for a review of that bid and so on, and that would have been a situation that Dr. Rowley would not have want happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. That's interesting.
But that's not the point, though.
No, but
because it's not the point, because I can't say that she would have won, but I'm pretty certain that she had a better chance.
No. He's not debating that issue. He's saying that one of the reasons why she's blocked, right, is that she might then do something that they might not want with the refinery sale.
The whole thing is that what you're going to get now in the media, now that whoever is supporting the PNM to get into the election is going to make Stuart Young look good, and then make the others not look so good, and then not talk too much about what the lack of democracy in what he did. So it's just the beginning of the whole story. I mean, that's how I understand that much.
One of the things that I never realized until doing this show that is almost integral to our politics is the whole, it's not that politicians vie to do the best they can so that they stand out from the pack. They'll actually complain, hey, so-and-so is doing too much and making the rest of us look bad, so we need him to stop actually working so hard and accomplishing things, because how dare he accomplish things when I can't accomplish things, or I don't want to accomplish things, or you don't want me to accomplish things, so let's not make the rest of us look bad by that person accomplishing things. So yes, trying to downplay or limit your peers seems to be a thing that happens far too often in politics in the country. I can't speak to other countries. I just know that I have specific anecdotes of examples that is somewhat disappointing, and some might say, well, you're kind of naive, but I mean, I would have liked to hope that they would have at least have been better lip service given to the phrase "for the good of the country." Right? At the very least, let's make it, not so obvious that we're blatantly not caring about the good of the country. And it's not limited to the government. I said politicians.
That's true.
Right? And I said that for a very specific reason.
That is true.
It's not just me trying to cover things up and make it seem but I have reasons to say that. And it's not that it applies all the time, and it's the overarching thing that's gonna overpower everything. But it's there. It's present. It's persistent.
Yeah, so we're not, and that's why I said to Sean when we were off air, I don't want to make it into an issue of party or anything like that. I think I'm just trying to look at this specific development, and I don't know that it has been ventilated in that way. I know people, they have spoken about, is it right to have the same political leader and have a potential prime minister being not one and the same? And my point is that it does not have to be so. and the fact that it is so does not speak well of Dr. Rowley, and it speaks to, in my view, even if the selection was not going to be penny. I'm not, I'm not a member of the party anymore, but I just looking on, I don't think he wanted to take the risk.
I think what happened is how the caller phrased it, right? It sounded like he's disagreeing with you. He's not saying that she wouldn't have been potentially selected by the democratic process. He's saying the reason why the democratic process potentially was blocked is they don't want her to be the leader over Young. Because
But then he's trying to say they don't, but that's another way of doing it indirectly. Because what you're saying is that should you select her, look at the risk you're taking with her. You want to take that risk? So, it's don't underestimate. That's the one thing I will see, and we just have to look and see how things develop in the media.
I will say this. One of the things coming out of that...
no offense to Mr. Mover. I mean, I might be getting it wrong.
One of the things that came out from the caucus was it seemed as though they kind of rushed the decision, and it may have boiled down to those two names. We'll never know if anybody else was considered.
There you go. You know, you're not anything from Colin, but somebody's cold, but...
We have Sanford on the line. Good morning, Colin, on here.
Good morning, John.
Morning.
Sarah. You just, did I hear correctly, Karen, that you just said that you're no longer a member of the PNL?
Well, yeah, I had resigned, remember? I don't even remember, but I'm no longer a member of the PNM.
Right.
I can't do that. I can't stay there and be criticizing them the way that I have.
And be a part of another political...
I couldn't do that.
No, but you can. Some people still members doing that same thing.
I won't do it. I'm not them. I'm Karen Teixeira, and I won't do it.
and I listen to all the commentators about this issue with political leadership of the PNM and the Prime Minister resigning and Stuart Young and Penny Beckles and all the political commentators, all the political parties you hear commenting. I want to say to them, so what? So what? What happened and the lineup of the ducks and everybody coming in line, and including Robert Lee Hunt and what's her name, Jennifer Baptiste-Primus. Those people, that is what was going to happen because of how the PNM operates. But I'm saying, who cares? I am still on my spoil your ballot campaign.
Right.
Because I am not seeing, and that's the problem. I would have hoped that I would have seen by now something emerging rather than just criticize the PNM, criticize the PNM, criticize the PNM. Everybody criticizing the PNM. Election is this year. I'm not seeing any plans, nobody putting out any plans in the public domain saying this is what we plan to do. Apart from Gary Griffith come out to it with his little thing. Nobody, okay, the MSJ come out and say they're not putting up any candidates for election. Which I agree with them because they're going to just boost the deposit. No, because they have not been able to transition from a union into a political party.
Yeah.
You would expect I understand they are trying to be the voice of a labor voice in the political landscape, but they haven't been able to transition their own members into their party. And translate it into votes, as we have seen every time they go up, every time they contest some sort of election. Now, that being said, as I said, where I am still looking for something different, this chap, Sean, what's his name, Dr. Shane Mohammed, right, who was on your program. Remember some time ago when I talked about that spoil the ballot, and he said, and he disagreed with me, and then he said, something is coming soon, something new is coming soon. I want you to tell Dr. Mohammed, I'm still waiting to see this new thing that's coming soon. So that is what he said on your program. Don't worry, something new is coming soon. And we're in January, just now it's February, just now it's March and April. And where I am still waiting to see something, some alternative to the big monster that everybody have called the PNM. What is the alternative to this, to what they're doing? Well, you go ahead and answer, Karen. You have a good day.
Yeah, I want to just answer you because obviously you have not watched or have looked at the HOPE document and policy for what we'll do in the first 6-18 months, and they're very definitive things. We've taken a position on having an elected president rather than one that is currently obtained, where it is effectively the prime minister doing that. We have taken a position on a fixed term. We have taken a position on proportional representation. There are different models. Ghana has a model. New Zealand has a model. We have taken a position on that. We have taken a position on the guns, to have a gun court similar to Jamaica, because many of the murders are committed with unlicensed guns by apparently gang leaders. And we have taken a position with implementing a gun court in Trinidad. We've taken a position of increasing the number of persons assigned to the DPP office and also that there should be a separate office dealing specifically with white-collar crime. We have taken a position on passage of the legislation with campaign financing as quickly as can, and because the Jamaicans have done it and their model is a very good model. We have taken a position regarding the fact that instead of having an economic advisory board that falls apart because they have no statutory power, we've looked at what Jamaica has, and they have by legislation set up a commission, and we have looked at it and looking at adopting and adapting it. When it comes to education, we have taken a position, and it is supported by the science, that the time in which a child's brain neurons, billions of neurons are fired, is between the ages of 0 to 3. And so that is we have taken a position in regard to diversification of the economy. We have taken a position so that it is an incorrect of you to say that we have not. What you have not done is you have not taken the time to go and look at the policy, the document of the HOPE, and the media has not been very helpful in that regard, because what you need, as we know, you need support, you need the backers, and that's why they don't want to pass the campaign financing legislation, right? So if you don't have the backers, you don't have the power in the media or the persons to call on the telephone or to go on TikTok or do whatever it is to bad talk whoever they want to and not let you know what HOPE has said, and has said very clearly in its policy document. All of what I have said there, HOPE has said it, and one last point on that. One last point. When the current government came in, they said they were red and ready. Among the persons who are in the leadership, we do have a proven track record. Timothy Hammersmith, Louis Lee Singh, Talk Radio, he introduced into Trinidad and Tobago with 102 and then 95.5, and myself. So, please.
Sanford, I think it's back with us.
Oh, he's back? Oh, gosh, sorry. I'm sorry, Mr.
Now come back.
No. I just came back, Aaron, and I listened to what you said there. And yes, I have taken the time, and I know, because you should. I think you should expect that I would know. However, this is what I wanted. You see just what you did there? This is what the vote. Remember, the voting population are not going to, like me, seek out the information, Karen. Mm-hmm. You have to bring it to them, and that was my point. My point is, they're not bringing it out to the man in the street. The fellow who lineman on High Street in San Fernando, the fellow who on Frederick Street. That is my point. Mm-hmm. My point is, you're not hearing anything because you all are not out there. And okay. this is what I have noticed with a lot of parties that I don't know if it's financing, and I understand the limitations, but to get the voters, you have to be out there.
I agree with you.
Your voice have to be echoing.
I agree with you.
Is it just how your voice echo there? That is what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. But I understand, just like I listened to Prakash Ramadal, the guy from the COP who just, what they call it, who had resigned to this position.
The interim leader.
Yes, and you know what he said? He said the reason he resigned is because you need financing to run a campaign. And he said he thought somebody else would have been better placed to get the financing than himself, because he may not be in the echelons where he can pull invest, or what would you call it, donors from out there. And I understood that, and that is the thing where you have to establish parties who already have a lot of the contributions coming in from business. And I understand the uphill battle, but you have to find some way to get this voice outside there for the population to hear it, because time running out there.
Yeah,
time running out.
I understand.
Caller, I think the problem is our politics. We're only 62 years old. In many ways, our machinery, our society politically is immature. We don't have all of the channels that other countries might have. We don't have all of the, I guess, it's immature. One of the main reasons why I say that is, I think, and this is somewhat true in other countries, but too many of the population, they're not, I don't even think they want to hear all of these ideas and all of these policy proposals and go down, not even to say it's too technical. They just want to hear what you could do for them. And what you can do for them right now, right? But the problem is sometimes what's good for them is not what they could get right now, but how these ideas will set things up in the long run for them.
But also how you sell those ideas. I think that's important, you know, because, I mean, Mrs. Amplia made some good points, and, you know, we already understand. I don't really want to use this as a platform to, you know, to litigate or to prosecute that at all. Yeah. I don't want to do that. I've always been strong on that. But, and I don't want to go...
That's some of the most hope thing that you've talked on.
Yes, that is the truth. And it's only because of what you said that I did have to respond, because I'm on television, a lot of people are listening. And if I didn't say that that's what was there, then it would really mean that...
There's nothing there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the most important part of it all is that I think that the people, we all have a track record that is a proven one. We have the proven track record. We are not unproven, and that is a good indication that if we say we're going to do something, it will happen. But that's not what I'm here about. I understood what you said, and I think we understand the constraints, and I don't want to prosecute or persecute that point anymore.
We have to end the show with that, but thanks to the callers, thanks Karen for joining in. I just want to close by saying this is why I'm saying that the population needs to be more involved. Because I think too many people, they kind of just Baliseo or Rice and Sun, you know, they don't, I'm not saying that they have to do all the effort, right?
True.
Right? Right, to some extent, because Karen agreed with Mr. Salmana, you're right, the people have to bring their information. The politicians have to bring their information to the people.
And for them to also see what is in it for them.
Right.
But human beings are selfish.
But to some extent, if we really want democracy to work, the people also have to kind of, it doesn't even have to be halfway, but you have to put some effort in to listen, to want to listen, right? You have to at least be an active listener and to want to hear what the alternatives are and to process the information. But you know, it can be broken down and made simple for the common man only so much. At the end of the day, democracy is just one of those things where if we kind of try to make things all about the lowest common denominator, then we really would be setting ourselves up to have an uphill battle to do anything. Because issues at governing or at government level are far too complex. We're not talking about lighting a birthday cake or building a tree house, and even that might be too complex, right? So that's one of the things. People need to be a bit more involved. Now,
he made a good point, and and I think don't underestimate, but I do think a critical thing is, you know, and that's true.
I think based on his point,
people need to see, well, what is in it for me? You talk all this talk, but how it's going to benefit me? How am I going to get more money in my pocket? How am I going to feel safer on the road? You're only talking the talk. I want to see how you're going to do it. So I understand what you're saying. I think we do, and I think that's all I will really say for the day.
And I'll just say this. I think to some extent the media also does have to always, it's not like we haven't figured it out or we have figured it out, but it's always a continuous internal debate on how to be objective with regards to covering all the various political parties fairly, so that as an institution you do not whether intentionally or unintentionally, present a biased position or presentation. Now, with that said, folks, make today a good day. Remember your allegiance to the Republic. Stay safe. It's nice to be nice. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.